Well, welcome back to Glencoe. Great to see you. It's mid-November now. Unfortunately, we've had a little bit of rain over the last few weeks. It's been diabolical, if I'm being honest with you. I found it so frustrating because we've got these beautiful autumn colours over October and it's just been chucking it down. And what that does is it makes all the vegetation go all mouldy and sort of horrible, which is a shame. I've lost all the leaves on the trees as well because of the storms, so it's been pretty dire. But so this is the first day I've been able to get out and get some beautiful light, and the light is looking pretty good. Now behind me is Lagangarbh Cottage, and this is old Elliot's Cottage as it used to be called, and it's a good location to start. And the reason I'm here is around the Glen, this is owned by the National Trust and it's a national park, so you can't just go and plonk out houses anywhere, so there's not many buildings around. Now the advantage with buildings like Elliot's Cottage here is they give you perspective and height to the mountains behind, and sometimes if you're shooting these sort of peaks, sometimes they look a little bit, you're not quite sure how high they are and you lose that drama a little bit. So it's quite an advantage if you can find a cottage in there, and there's several cottages around Glencoe that really help you with that. So what I'm going to do today is I'm going to move around the Glen, show you where all these little buildings are, and I'm going to try and challenge myself a little bit and see if I can get some shots that are a little bit unusual, because some of these cottages are quite cliched and you can kind of see the same shot all the time. So I'm going to show you where they are, but I'm also going to try and challenge myself and see if I can actually get some shots that are a little bit different and a little bit unusual. So come and join me. Let's go and have a look at all the buildings and the cottages around Glencoe. So this is Elliot's Cottage here. It's called Elliot's Cottage after the Elliot family that used to live in there. Unfortunately, Willie Elliot died a couple of years ago. Behind it is the Tears of Glencoe, and Glencoe stands for Glen of Weeping, and nobody really knows where the Glen of Weeping come from. Is it because of the Tears of Glencoe or Elliot's downfall, which just flows all the time? Or some people say it's because of the massacre of Glencoe in 1692. The only thing with that is, I think it was called Glencoe before 1692, so I don't think that's the correct answer. I think it's to do with Elliot's downfall. But anyway, it's wonderful, Glencoe, when it really rains, and boy have we had some rain over the last few weeks. The whole walls are just full of water just coming down, so it's quite amazing. Now Elliot's Cottage is quite nice. It is a classic shop, but the only downside with Elliot's Cottage is its orientation. It sits behind Achnan Bay and the Anakdu, which are the two mountains that it sits behind. And the problem is south is that way, so the sun just doesn't ever get to Elliot's Cottage. It's always in shade. And the only time of year that you really get some light on it is right in sort of June time, when there's a bit of light that just peeks over those mountains to my left, and then it comes in and just shines on the cottage. But the problem is with that time of year, because we're all fussy as poor photographers, is all the landscape is very green and very uniform, so you lose all the textures. So actually sometimes it's quite hard to see a really great shot of Elliot's Cottage, which is quite interesting. Now, where I'm standing here, this is the track that goes up to the cottage, which is really quite nice, and it makes for a great leading line. It gives you some really depth and perspective to this shot. But it's a bit of a cliche shot, so I'm gonna go and try and find something a little bit different. So what I'm gonna do is, instead of walking up to the cottage itself, I'm gonna head back down to the river and the bridge where you park, and then I'm just gonna go a bit left, and I know there's a little waterfall there, which might be quite good because it's set back and the light's a little bit flat. Then I'm probably going to need something to give it a bit of character to the photograph. So I'm going to head down there, see if I can get a little waterfall in there. I know it's there, but I might have to crowbar it in, but I've got my wide angle lens. So let's head on down and let's see what we can get. Okay, so I've come back across the bridge, and then I'm going to walk myself down this car park here, which is the main car park to Elliot's cottage. And then you can just see the river there, that's the River Coe, and it's just flowing out the Loch Actreocton, and it just flows down towards the Clackaig. So there's a few little drops there which might be quite useful just to give some foreground interest to this shot. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to nip over the wall here, get down onto the river, hopefully don't get wet, and we're going to try and find a few little drops there to see if I've got some water. There's plenty of water coming down, and maybe if I can slow this down a little bit, might give me some character to the shot. I've got to be careful because the cottage might start going a little bit too tiny because I'm a good way away from the cottage now, I'm afraid. But let's see what I can get. There might be something of interest. Okay, I found a nice composition that I really like here. As you climb over the wall, there's some rocks that are a bit dodgy. Down you go, and then what you can get is you can see this little boulder here which works quite well. And I've got the main River Coe coming around, and it kind of sprays around that boulder, which is going to be quite nice in the shot. The light on the Anarchiga is really quite nice at the moment as well, so it's quite good. For once I've got some light coming in, which is great, and those colours and textures are really nice. Now the danger is with this location, this is great, but you can go a bit low. If you go a little bit low though, so if I turn you around a bit, you'll see the cottage itself. If you go too low, the cottage kind of gets overlapped by the landscape in front of it. And what happens then is you get this like bizarre feeling of this cottage floating in the middle of nowhere. You kind of want to ground it onto the floor a little bit. So don't get too low here, you want a little bit of elevation just to make sure that cottage is sitting up nice and high. Okay, I think my composition's pretty good. I'm going to go on the camera, and if this shot works, here it is. So what a great shot, and you don't really see that. I can't remember seeing that very often at all, so it's quite a nice little shot. So if you come into Ackland Bay Cottage, go and have a look over that wall and go and see that shot, it's really nice. Okay, I'm back in the car now, so what I'm going to do is, I've been invaded by lots of tourists, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to head up. The light's got a bit flat here as well, so I'm going to head up to the top end of the Glen, and let's go to our next cottage. Okay, so I've driven up the top end of the Glen, and just because the light on the Booker was really nice, and it's actually quite good here. This is called Rock Cottage. It's a bit of an iconic shot of Glencoe, and if you Google images of Glencoe, Rock Cottage is going to definitely pop up. You see it on quite a few biscuit tins and things like that as well. It's such a popular location. Now, it is a little bit low-hanging fruit, and it is a little bit of a cliche shot, so I've struggled with it for years. I did get a good shot a few years ago with some sunrise coming up. I'll perhaps show you that one. So, and that was a nice shot. Just was lucky I could see the golden light coming on the rock itself, which is down here, and that light just hit it. And in fact, to be honest, that time I did get up and I did drive away, and then I seen the light hitting the boulder, and I thought, oh, this is going to be spectacular. So I did turn around and come back and did get quite a nice little shot with lots of golden light coming on it. I'm going to try here, the light's kind of a little flat, there's a little bit on the buckle here, so I'm going to try around, but I've walked around a little bit and I'm really struggling for compositions apart from the one great composition that there is. So I don't know what to do. I'm going to struggle around, see if I can find something that's a bit unusual, because that was the idea, is finding cottages but coming from a different angle. But if I can't find anything, I'm just going to have to shoot the dreaded cliche shot. Okay, I've spent quite a bit of time wandering around now, and I'm going to be honest with you here. I'm struggling. I really am struggling. I can't find a really good composition that doesn't fit that dreaded cliche shot, which I don't want to do. I've walked around the cottage. I've got the cottage from the back side, from the front. It just doesn't work. It's just really struggling with it. So the only composition that does work is with the dreaded cottage and the buckle in the background. But then I've come up with a good idea, and this might work or it might be a complete disaster. Because it's quite exposed here, we've got Rannoch Moor here, it's very exposed, that these grasses in the foreground are very whispering around in that wind and moving a lot. And that got me thinking, why don't I just make like a dark, moody shot? But if I get low with my camera, I can get this foreground all moving as if it was like water, like a sea, and giving that softness in the shot. And then that will give me that sharp cottage, which is obviously stable. And then the clouds are quite moving quite fast as well. That wind is quite fast up there. So then clouds are coming across as well quite fast. So it will give me like a little sandwich of softness, harsh sort of cottage, and then softness in the sky. I'm going to make it quite dark and moody because the light's not brilliant, but this might work. It might even go black and white. I'll see what I'll do when I come to editing it. But I've slowed it right down. I've got a 10 stop filter on there. I'm going to try and get 30 seconds, maybe a minute out of it, something like that. So let's see what we get. It might be crazy, but hey, you've got to be creative. So if this shot works, here's the shot. Okay, so I've had a spot of lunch at the ski centre here, nice bowl of soup, and I've come up to my last cottage in Glencoe, and this is called Lagangarbh Cottage, which is great. It's my favourite cottage in Glencoe to photograph, just because it kind of fits everything. In terms of composition, it just fits all the compositional guides. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to come on down. Like I say, I'm going to have a look at something a little bit unusual and something that's slightly different than the cliche shot. So I'm going to wander around, but I will say there is at least 5 good compositions here in this location. They're great for sunrise, great for sunset. So definitely one of the, if you come into Glencoe, you've got to come to Lagangarbh Cottage. Now watch when you come in, because the road has got very bad and there'll be a few scraped sumps on the way in. Luckily I'm in the 4x4, so it's not too bad. The cottage itself is the Scottish Mountaineering Club's cottage, and it also looks down the Lagangarbh, and the good thing is with the Lagangarbh is it is facing the direction of sunset. So I've got a couple of hours. It's about 2 o'clock in the afternoon, so I've got an hour and a half, 2 hours. And sometimes if you're lucky this time of year, you might get a nice sunset in the distance there. Cool. Okay, let's go and have a look, see if we can get some good comps, and we'll see if we can find something that's going to be worthwhile snapping. If you've watched a few of my videos before, some of you will notice that something missing here. And I'm afraid the dog is not here with me today, just because, don't worry, it was just because I was near the roads a few times and I didn't want to run it out on the roads. It would have been hard work. So she didn't come with me. But here's a shot of what I got when I left my boot open this morning loading up the car. And there she was. So it was kind of obvious that she wanted to come with me. Look at those sad eyes, poor dog. Anyway, there's a gap in the boot here for Vern. So hopefully on the next one we'll go and take her out. But she wasn't happy this morning when I left the house. So the cottage has had a little bit of a revamp recently. I actually preferred it a few weeks ago. What they've done is they chipped away all the rough rendering, so it looked quite distressed. It was quite nice. It was like an old-fashioned distressed cottage, so I quite liked it. But they've pointed it all back up now, and unfortunately today the decorators are in, so they're painting it. It's getting late, so I'm guessing they're going to get the ladders out of the way. There's a pigging ladder in the way at the minute, but I'm guessing that's going to go in a second. My only concern is this van here. This van is right next to under the bridge, which is where I actually want to go, so I'm kind of hoping that's not going to be in the shot. I'm going to have a walk on down, let's see if it's there, but hopefully that back bumper at least, because it's parked right next to the bridge. Oh, it's always the case, isn't it? Anyway, fingers crossed I can get under the bridge and hopefully that's not in my shot. Well, I'm in luck. I'm absolutely delighted. Just across the bridge, that bridge actually takes you up to the buckle and takes you to Lagangarbh Cottage. But what you can do is you can come underneath the bridge and you get quite a nice shot. You get the River Coupal coming down, and then you can get a nice little bit of a drop of a waterfall. Now the light is looking fantastic, so I'm getting excited again. I am due a good sunset. I've done a lot of videos recently and it's definitely my turn to get a good sunset, so it's looking good. The light's just come out, so I'm really excited. And also I'm excited, you can see by the tone of my voice, is yeah, that truck's not in my shot, which is even more, it's close. And if I take another couple of inches out to the river, you can see it, but at the minute it's not there. And also the one ladder they've got left in the cottage is sitting outside on the right hand side of the cottage, so even if it doesn't get moved I can clone it out quite easily, so that's not too bad. Okay, I'm going to get set up here for a nice composition, and then it's a waiting game for that light because it's looking great. Okay, that sun is going to set lovely in a minute. It's looking really good. It's beautiful cloud. So I'll flip you around and show you what I'm looking at. And I'm under the bridge, so you can see the bridge. Now you've got to be careful to keep that bridge out of the shot. But what that allows me to do is getting close, is you can see the cottages over here. There's the cottage. And then I've got this lovely leading line coming all the way down here. And by being under the bridge, you get a little bit of a step, a little drop down in the River Coupal, and that gives you this nice tail of water coming off that way, which works really well. So what the journey through this shot works, and in terms of composition, is your eye comes up the river, has a look at the cottage there, and then it nips into maybe this U-shaped valley called the Lagangarbh, or the wee buckle up to the right there. Okay, we're nearly there. Normally it's to do with the light and the conditions and the composition, but my problem this afternoon is going to be I'm struggling with everybody's here. I've got a group of photographers just turned up, must be about 12 of them. I've got some film crew doing something as well. Oh dear. The guys with the ladders have just put the ladders in front of the cottage, and now they're having a chit chat and a cup of tea. So I'm kind of hoping that this finishes soon. Everybody buggers off just before sunset. I can see what's going to happen. There's going to be a lovely sunset and everybody's still going to be around and in the shop. Oh dear, it's November, go home. Okay, I'm on the camera now, and okay, that's my composition set up now. As you can see, it's looking pretty good. Still a bit harsh, so I'm going to wait a little bit. But what I've got on here is I've gone on with the 6 stopper, and what that's going to allow me to do is just really slow this water down. I was thinking of putting a polarizer on here just to sort of get rid of all that glare, but the thing is polarizers really only work if they are at an oblique angle to the sun, and they're not. That one's not pretty much into the sun. So one, it's not going to make a blind bit of difference, and two, I kind of want the glare, because in my head the shot is lovely sort of colour in the sky, but then that's going to be reflected in the river as well. So that's the kind of shot in my head. It's looking really good, it really is. There's not much cloud about, and there's a few wispy clouds which hopefully won't block the sun, because we've been there before with that, haven't we? So yeah, it should just set in a few minutes. I'm getting a little bit excited here, so here we go. Okay, that's the sun about to set. It's just peeking over, those clouds are going to clear. I think it's looking really good. So I'm going to set myself. Oh, I'm so happy. Finally a decent sunset. Okay, we're nearly there. I'm going to press the shutter now. And if this shot is good, which I know it is, here is the shot. Well, I think that shot worked out really well. I'm really pleased with it. Now, if you like what you see, give me a thumbs up. It is most appreciated. And if you really like it, just pop on down and click on that subscribe button. And if you tickle the bell, you'll get a notification every time I post a new video. As always, it's a pleasure to have you with me. Thank you so much for watching, and hopefully we'll see you in the next video.